After 2 years together, I realized I don't truly love her. Healing feels impossible, but I know I need to let go. WTF. This will be lengthy, so I appreciate your time. Please excuse my poor English. To summarize, I began my first relationship with a girl from high school with whom I lost touch, and after 2 years together, I do not believe this is going to be sustainable in the long run. How I met her. First, let me provide some background. I met this girl when I was around 17 years old. We were both preparing for college. At that point, I considered her just a friend. We shared some casual conversations and music, met a few times, and although I had limited romantic or sexual experiences, I did not have any feelings for her. However, she was interested in me, pursued me persistently, and we shared a kiss and a few more afterward. I attempted to distance myself. I am not sure why. I was quite shy and did not know how to communicate that I was not interested. The time we were at college, jumping ahead, we went to college, I moved to a different city, and we lost touch. I believe she blocked me on Facebook at that time. While in college, I was on a downward spiral, wasting time on video games, making minimal effort, and smoking marijuana. My popularity with girls did not improve, and the situation worsened during the pandemic. I reached a turning point in my life where I needed to change, or I would be consumed by my poor habits. The pandemic was a tough time for me. I lost my father, but that experience ultimately made me stronger. When I returned to college after the pandemic, I significantly reduced my gaming and marijuana use, and during the final year, my thesis period, I quit entirely, smoking just once every couple of months with friends. I focused on self-improvement, exercised regularly, became more committed to my career. I studied information technology, and nurtured healthy relationships. Meeting after over 5 years. One day, I received a notification on Facebook indicating that she had unlocked me, so I initiated a conversation with her once again. I was in a phase of openness and communication, wanting to apologize for my past behavior and check in on her well-being. I sincerely enjoyed speaking with her after such a long time. At that moment, I felt a connection, though I now recognize this was likely due to our mutual emotional needs at the time. I realized that I had avoided being with her 5 years ago because I lacked courage, and forming a relationship requires bravery in accepting a person with all their positive and negative traits. So I took the initiative, we met up, and after a month of reconnecting, I asked her if she wanted to be my girlfriend. The relationship that was over 2 years and a few months ago. When we became a couple, I knew she would be going to Canada that year. The first few months of our relationship were long distance since I was finishing my college semester. We spent a couple of months together, going to various places. I even worked with her father. On May 6, she went to Canada. The initial 3 months were relatively easy as we chatted daily and had video calls to watch series together. However, I eventually started to feel drained, as I felt I was putting in a lot of emotional support without receiving what I anticipated in return. After graduating, I returned home, which was difficult after being away for so long. I wanted to find a job and become fully independent. It struck me how unprepared I was after spending so much time in college. I barely knew more than the basics and had only completed a few projects. Even as a junior developer, securing a job would not be easy. I spent time creating WordPress websites to gain experience. I landed a position in IT support at a supermarket chain in my town, which lasted 2 months. It wasn't my ideal job, but it was a start. Meanwhile, she was studying in her program with the expectation that she would find work there. However, she spent many months learning English, as we both speak Spanish, and following her studies. She had ample free time to seek a weekend job or improve her English, yet she chose not to, and her progress seemed slow to me, always seeking my attention. At this point in my life, I wanted to invest more effort into building my career and found it unattractive to be in a relationship where I felt the other person was not contributing as much as I was. Do not misunderstand me. She is talented, creating small drawings and crafts. However, in my love language, I value spending quality time, and even if I never receive gifts, I would be content as long as we shared meaningful time together, which was not happening. And the other person was making an effort to improve themselves and share their growth with me, which was also lacking. During this period, I did everything I could to advance my situation, earned money essential to being in the same country, worked on my personal development, and aimed to become the kind of person who could secure a good job and enhance my quality of life in general. At this point, I rarely played video games. I took up calisthenics to release stress from work and started reading again. However, I continually compared my efforts to hers, which often seemed to consist mainly of binge-watching series and not actively engaging her mind. I encouraged her to process her feelings, suggesting jogging or walking to help her health and allow her thoughts to flow. After almost a year, I attempted to end our relationship, questioning whether the distance was the issue. It is challenging to understand her emotional state regarding being far from home or adjusting to a foreign language, etc. She chose to visit family for Christmas, also to discuss our situation. I found it touching that she came to see me, and I could not bring myself to break up with her, deciding instead to give it another chance. When she returned to Canada, she fell ill, and finally, at the end of January, she came back. Our time together was bittersweet because, while we were finally close, she needed to focus on her health, diet, and weight loss, which she did, and I felt happy to witness her pursuing self-love and improvement. I made an effort to support her during this, but that only lasted a few months, and I began to feel disenchanted again. At that point, I was building a system as a freelancer for my cousin's travel agency. This was the kind of project I wanted to add to my resume to help secure a job in the future. In April 2024, I finally got my first job, and I am grateful for what I have built as I continue to learn and grow. While writing all of this, I realized that I have come to the conclusion that she is not the person I genuinely love. I do not enjoy the majority of our conversations, finding them superficial, and I see little in common regarding hobbies. Perhaps the hardest truth is that I do not feel any admiration for her. It is about the effort, not just the achievements. She does not truly commit to activities that would benefit her, and I fear that in 5 years, she will have barely changed. What troubles me the most is that I often find myself adopting some of her thought patterns, which I do not appreciate and do not fully agree with. This realization leaves me feeling like a terrible person because the only area where she invests effort is in our relationship. She shows great consideration for me and my mother, even without being asked, and I do genuinely feel her love or perhaps clinginess. While I strive to give her as much as I cannot envision building a family with her. I attempted to break up with her last December when we were nearly at the 1-year mark, and then again in June, but at that time, I had not expressed my feelings, which felt unfair. Now I find myself depleted, yet life continues. Due to her health issues, she is undergoing medical tests, and I have encouraged her to resume her diet, which she once enjoyed, to come home to work out together, or simply to go for walks, but none of these actions have remained consistent over time. This frustrates me, as I feel powerless to change the situation. I feel compelled to acknowledge my feelings and part ways because I recognize that I am not being fair to her. I need to take action to clarify our goals and thoughts. Perhaps a temporary separation to allow for personal reflection is necessary, or we could strive to maintain a friendship. In life, I have adopted the belief that nothing is ultimately bad, even if it causes pain. I believe we will both be fine. Perhaps she will come to realize the changes she could make to improve her life, and I will learn the lessons this relationship has to offer. I am uncertain where to begin regarding any advice. I seek ways to process these emotions, questioning whether I should muster the courage to continue the relationship, balance my current job with a second job, and put an effort towards her. I wonder if it would be healthier to simply break up, as my inconsistency is also not beneficial for her. It feels bittersweet to drift apart. Story 2. I faced an associate director who tore apart my training module, then tried to erase her mistakes, but I had the evidence to expose her. I was creating an online training module at my job, designed to instruct current users on a new process. It includes interactive components, quizzes, and sections to navigate a few sample scenarios, among other things. Recently, we welcomed a new associate director who, from what I have observed, progressed through the company by undermining others. She receives promotions not for her own achievements, but because she seems to end up with less blame than other candidates. It is so striking that there must be something more to it than mere office politics. I will elaborate on that shortly. Once I completed the initial draft of the module, It was sent out for the standard round of testing, and naturally, there were a few aspects that required adjustments. I developed the module based on the notes provided by the subject matter experts, and inevitably, certain details get lost during the process. However, this new associate director completely tore it apart, claiming that it was entirely unclear, required significantly more detail, questioning nearly every single mouse click in the sample scenarios, and generally asserting that it was impossible to follow. The issue is that this module is aimed at our finance department, specifically for individuals who possess a finance background and have already been trained in using our internal software. She is a training services associate director with a teaching background. The module is meant to be comprehensible to individuals with finance degrees, not to a former middle school social studies teacher. I attempted to push back and clarify this for her in numerous ways, but she refused to accept it. Consequently, I had to return to the subject matter experts with around 20 pages of her criticisms. Initially, they thought I was joking. I had to forward her email before they took me seriously. For the following 2 weeks, we meticulously examined every detail, including revisiting all topics covered during their 3-week classroom training. We discussed setting up their network drives, configuring Outlook, and even extremely basic instructions like, if you don't know how to set up your email signature, click here. This is fundamental material that has nothing to do with the original intent of the module. However, I was forced to incorporate it all because our new associate director couldn't find the on switch, even if it was right in front of her. This is a waste of my time, the subject matter expert's time, and the time spent re-recording all the voice work. If you have done voice work before, you understand you never get it right in one attempt. Once everything was completed, I sent it back out for review and approval, but the associate director simply did not respond. A week went by. The finance director became curious as to why this module was almost a month overdue. I attempted to forward the associate director's email again, only to find that I could no longer locate it. It was strange, particularly since I have a tendency to hoard emails. I checked with one of the subject matter experts I had been working with, and he couldn't find it either. It turned out that none of us could locate it. It was missing. So, I reached out to a friend of mine in information technology, who after some investigation uncovered that someone had performed a compliance delete on the Exchange server about a week ago. This essentially involves erasing messages that meet specific criteria. In this case, it pertained to a particular phrase she had used in her email. I began sifting through Outlook, trying to find specific emails that might support my actions, and they were all gone. Inbox, sent items, deleted items, every last one of them. Any email containing that particular phrase had vanished. Such actions are normally employed by administrators to mass delete spam or phishing emails from all users simultaneously. However, in this instance, it appeared that someone had deliberately deleted emails that would reveal the harmful decisions she made. My friend in information technology could sense a captivating story and was very intrigued to see how this situation unfolded. She retrieved the deleted emails, and I quickly saved them onto a flash drive. Over the following days, for every email that mentioned this associate director's name, even if it was unrelated, you never know how details might connect, I saved a copy to the flash drive. I informed the subject matter experts to do the same, and we began to construct our offline evidence repository. I did not want to publicly reveal this yet. I wanted to see if my suspicions were accurate. Perhaps a lifetime of watching espionage films and police dramas had skewed my judgment. There might be another explanation. Who knows? I am not omniscient. After several weeks of attempting to satisfy this associate director's insatiable demand for irrelevant details, and then being ignored for a week, she finally published the module and sent it to the finance director for approval so it could go live. Great news. However, the module, initially intended as a 30-minute online course, now contained 3 hours of content and wandered down various irrelevant avenues that were deemed critical supporting information. To illustrate, imagine crafting a training module to teach a nurse how to input some new CPT codes only to be told that you must also teach methods of reading, since they may not know what words are. That captures the extent of the unnecessary content crammed into this module. Naturally, the finance director was displeased and expressed surprise that such a disorganized module could come from me, of all people. As a result, he scheduled a meeting with me and the associate director on Tuesday to seek answers, and sure enough, she promptly attempted to distance herself from the situation. She tried to portray it as though she had provided a few suggestions and that I had gone excessively overboard. She insinuated that I must have sent her another version that she approved and subsequently swapped them, which is impossible, as it would revert the draft back. She continuously tried to speak over me as I presented my defense, and to his credit, the finance director finally muted her so I could articulate my points. And I certainly did. I explained everything. I shared my screen, plugged in my flash drive, and displayed my copies of the emails that had supposedly been deleted. Every email exchange in which she criticized the material, I countered, and she explicitly instructed me to construct the module as I did. She abruptly exited the meeting and went offline. The finance director requested if I could send him a copy of all pertinent files, and as I did, I warned him that they might not be accessible later. I then explained what I had discovered regarding someone in IT implementing the compliance delete. He assured me that he would investigate, and chaos ensued. The associate director never logged back on. There was a significant internal audit, where individuals from her previous departments were asked to provide statements. Leadership attempted to keep it confidential, but it is difficult to suppress something that significant. I am not aware of the precise details or procedures, but the associate director and one of the IT managers both left the company to pursue the next stage of their careers, and we sincerely wish them the best. I do not engage much in social media, but over the next few days as the rumor mill circulated, I learned that their situation exploded, revealing that the associate director and the IT manager were involved in an affair. This situation unfolded about a month ago, and as I wrote this post, I decided to check online court records. Both are now facing divorces initiated by their respective spouses. Consequently, there is a void in my direct leadership and in the leadership of IT, and the entire IT department is undergoing scrutiny by information security to ascertain if there were any additional leaks. I took some time to reflect on why this entire series of events transpired, and my best conjecture is that she aimed to make a grand entrance by leading this comprehensive training module covering every conceivable scenario, containing any and all information anyone could desire. However, as she began to comprehend how wasteful, meandering, and unnecessary it was, she recognized that her grand entrance would actually be a significant failure. Consequently, she attempted to eliminate the evidence and shift all the blame onto me to preserve her reputation, but instead, she inadvertently triggered events that would expose her little arrangement with the IT manager. Protecting her position came at the expense of her integrity, I suppose. Story 3. My husband refuses to enter social events, waiting outside while I manage everything, leaving me embarrassed and annoyed. Why? I am extremely frustrated with my husband. Hello, this is my first time posting here. I have been contemplating whether I should just keep this to myself, but I am simply overwhelmed by the situation. I am a 33-year-old female, and my husband is a 35-year-old male. We are both in our mid-30s, and we share a 2-year age difference. We both work, and we have 3 children, all of whom are under 7 years old. My main issue revolves around my husband's reluctance to attend social events with me. This behavior began after we started working. He wasn't like this before. Whenever there are social gatherings, he avoids entering the venue and instead stays outside, whether in the parking lot or a nearby park. It's not like I'm someone who constantly wants to go out. Some social events are simply necessary for us to attend. For instance, at my former boss's 50th birthday celebration, there were only 5 of us from the office, so we were naturally expected to be there, and our significant others were invited too. We even had a role in the program. My former boss is familiar with all our family members and addresses our significant others by their first names. The event was a dinner, complete with food and a program. We knew his family well too. Yet my husband chose not to enter the venue when I arrived. He stayed outside the entire time, even during the meal. Everyone was asking about his whereabouts, and I had to explain he was outside, supposedly getting some fresh air. When I encouraged him to join me, he flatly refused. He didn't eat at all. Eventually, I had to leave early and skip my portion of the program because he was hungry and I felt embarrassed about being late. I hadn't prepared any food at home since there was already dinner waiting. I ended up apologizing to them the next day, fabricating an excuse about an issue back home, even though there was none. Another occasion involved an office gathering with just 5 of us. 3 of my colleagues are godparents to one of my children, and the other is our utility staff. Once again, my husband chose not to join us, and I ended up taking food home instead. During another event, one of my friends from high school got married. My husband had been the one to introduce his friends to me. We both received an invitation to the wedding, despite not being part of the wedding party, just as guests. The venue was quite far away, requiring a 2-hour drive as the bride was from that area. We attended the wedding ceremony and took pictures afterward, offering our best wishes. However, when it came time for the meal, my husband once again refused to go inside. By that point, I was exhausted and starving since the ceremony had started late. The priest was delayed, and we were already past 1 p.m. I simply looked at him in disbelief. In the end, we made up an excuse to leave quickly, claiming we needed to return home since the nanny was about to leave. We drove for 2 hours back to the city center, grabbing lunch at a restaurant around 4 p.m. I was incredibly frustrated, recalling that I hadn't spoken to him on the way and ate my meal in silence. He complained that he was starving, as it was so late. I was baffled by his attitude. It felt like it was his fault for acting so stubbornly. There have been many similar incidents, leaving me confused about his behavior. He doesn't act this way with his colleagues. He attends christenings, graduations, and weddings without issues. When I tried discussing his attitude with him, he simply stated that he dislikes such events and sees his role as my chauffeur. I found this response unacceptable, telling him it felt as if I had tied up a dog and left it outside. He would even refuse to eat, enduring hunger, and then complaining that he wanted to leave because I was taking too long. I know it's considered inconsiderate to eat and leave at social gatherings, but there have been times I've had to do just that. I felt embarrassed at how I'd have to ask the host if I could bring a portion of food out for him, only for him to refuse it. He's not picky with food, nor does he have an eating disorder or weight concerns. I don't believe this stems from shyness. He is quite popular among our friends and is very sociable. Additionally, these events are not filled with strangers, so I cannot comprehend his issue. It's exasperating when people constantly inquire about his absence from inside. Sometimes I worry that he does not want to be seen with me. I have no other explanation. Recently, a college friend, who was also my roommate, messaged me inviting us to her wedding. The groom is someone my husband and I both know but we're not very close to. They are both overseas workers returning for the wedding and vacation. The venue was about 1.5 hours away, and the reception was held at a hotel. After sharing the details with my husband, we discussed the event, and I even joked about what we would wear since the color scheme was baby blue, which I know is his favorite color. Despite this, he insisted he would just be my ride and would wait outside. I grew frustrated at this response, pointing out how others would perceive my leaving him outside. He would then insist that I hurry inside and want to leave early when he got hungry. I decided it was best not to attend and RSVP'd that I was unavailable on that date, thanking her for the invitation and congratulating her. This evening, a similar situation occurred at the christening of a colleague's child. I have been with this company for almost 5 years, so the godparents were people I know well. There were about 50 guests since it was also the child's birthday, complete with a children's party. My workmate suggested I bring my kids along for them to enjoy the festivities. I informed my husband about this a week in advance, and he assured me he was free. However, when I arrived, I got so busy managing the kids, especially my 2-year-old, only to find out that he had chosen to stay outside. I couldn't believe it. He refused to join in, even when everyone encouraged him to come in and eat. He kept saying, later. I was exasperated that he left me to manage the kids while goofing off outside. He even had the nerve to ask me for food. I told him if he didn't want to come inside, he could manage his hunger. I vowed never to leave an event early and engage in hasty eating again. He grew upset and ended up waiting until the event concluded, leaving with me and my workmates. I felt obliged to bring him a portion of food again since there was nothing at home, and I didn't want to cook upon returning, even though I didn't feel like doing so. He hasn't spoken to me since, and I'm not interested in chatting with him either. Meanwhile, the kids happily enjoyed the party and received new toys. I don't force him to attend every event. I simply mention I have something to attend, and he agrees to come along, yet this pattern repeats itself. I feel genuinely confused and angry. At times, I prefer not including him in any events as I would rather go solo or just with the kids. I would have no issues with that. I can't shake the feeling that he seems to feel left out. What is truly going on?